For 14 years, I've served as an emergency medicine physician, during which time I've officially declared over 400 individuals deceased. Dealing with death is an intrinsic aspect of this profession. One learns to accept it, document it, and then promptly attend to the next patient. However, the events surrounding Daniel Carver in November 2022 fundamentally challenged my understanding of mortality and resuscitation. I feel compelled to share this account of what I witnessed, even if its veracity is met with skepticism. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, and I am affiliated with Rocky Mountain Medical Center in Denver. November 3rd, 2022 began like any other Thursday night shift. By 10:30 p.m., the emergency department had notably quieted down. It was then that Daniel Carver was brought in by paramedics. The radio dispatch, received 8 minutes prior, reported a 38-year-old male found unresponsive in his apartment, without a pulse or respiration. The estimated downtime before bystander CPR commenced was approximately 10 to 15 minutes. Upon entering Trauma Bay 2, where my team was assembled, I observed the paramedics transferring Daniel Carver to our gurney, with one still actively performing chest compressions. The lead paramedic informed me, "Daniel Carver, 38 years old. We've been running the code for 22 minutes. 3 rounds of epinephrine, 1 of atropine. No response. Still asystole." My gaze fell upon the monitor, which displayed a flat line. Daniel was a slender man, perhaps 5 feet 10 inches, weighing 160 pounds. His skin was pale, exhibiting the waxy pallor characteristic of prolonged cardiac arrest. The total downtime was, at a minimum, 30 minutes. Given the lack of response to advanced life support, the prognosis was virtually non-existent. "Continue compressions," I instructed, "and administer another milligram of epinephrine." We rigorously followed protocol. His pupils were fixed and dilated, and his skin felt cool to the touch. Despite multiple rounds of medication, there was no electrical activity. At 10:41 p.m., after 29 minutes of continuous CPR, I made the difficult decision. "Time of death, 10:41 p.m., I announced. My team stepped back, and the nurses began removing the monitoring leads. As I removed my gloves and turned towards the door, Nurse Jennifer exclaimed, "Dr. Chen, I'm still getting a pulse ox reading." "That's an artifact," I replied. "The machine hasn't reset." Yet she paused. "Doctor, I can feel a pulse in his radial artery." Placing my fingers on Daniel's wrist, I indeed detected a pulse, faint but regular, at approximately 70 beats per minute. "Get him back on the monitor," I ordered. The cardiac monitor displayed a normal sinus rhythm, as if his heart had simply decided to resume beating. "Lazarus syndrome," the physician assistant remarked. "Auto-resuscitation. The chest compressions build up pressure, and when you stop, the pressure releases and can restart the heart." She was correct. A rare but documented phenomenon I had never witnessed in 14 years of practice. We spent the next hour stabilizing him. His blood pressure improved to 110/70, and his pulse remained steady at 72. Laboratory tests and imaging results were remarkably normal, apart from expected post-arrest changes. Dr. Richard Kowalski, the intensivist, arrived around midnight. "Lazarus syndrome," I explained. 29 minutes of CPR, called the code, then spontaneous return of circulation. Kowalski noted, "Neurologically, he's likely to be a disaster with that much downtime." Daniel was transferred to the ICU around 12:30 a.m., and I returned to attending to other patients. At 3:47 a.m., Kowalski called. "Sarah, you need to come up to the ICU now." I found Kowalski outside room 412. Through the glass, Daniel lay intubated, surrounded by monitors. "Watch the monitor," Kowalski instructed. It showed a normal sinus rhythm. Then the rhythm flattened. Complete asystole. A flat line. "Jesus," I muttered. "Wait," Kowalski urged. "Keep watching." After 5, 10, then 15 seconds, the rhythm returned. Normal sinus rhythm. "It's been happening every 20 minutes, Kowalski elaborated. "His heart stops for 15 to 20 seconds, then it starts again on its own." We confirmed it wasn't equipment malfunction. I personally felt his pulse stop and restart. Remarkably, when his heart ceased, nothing else changed. His blood pressure and oxygen saturation remained stable, which was medically baffling. Dr. Lisa Martinez from cardiology arrived with an ultrasound. We observed Daniel's heart on the screen, beating normally. Then it stopped. All movement ceased. The heart lay completely still within his chest. "My God," Martinez whispered. 18 seconds later, it restarted. Not gradually, but instantly. "I've never seen anything like this," Martinez stated. "It's like someone is flipping a switch." We conducted every available cardiac test. All results were normal, except for this inexplicable phenomenon. Every 20 minutes precisely, Daniel's heart would stop for 15 to 20 seconds, and then spontaneously restart. At 6:15 a.m., I heard shouts emanating from his room. The nurse was backing away from the bed. "He opened his eyes," she reported. "He looked right at me." I approached. His eyes were closed, but as I watched, they opened simultaneously, staring fixedly at the ceiling without a single blink. "Daniel, can you hear me? Blink if you can hear me." There was no response. His pupils constricted to light, indicating good brainstem function. Yet there was no tracking, no sign of processing visual information. "He's in there," the nurse quietly reiterated. "When he looked at me, I felt like someone was looking at me." I understood her sentiment. There was something profoundly different about those open eyes. My shift concluded at 7 a.m. I went home, exhausted, yet unable to sleep. At 2 p.m. I called the ICU. "He's the same. Heart stopping every 20 minutes. Eyes open, but no response. Dr. Martinez is bringing in a specialist." I returned at 5 p.m., finding Martinez with Dr. Robert Vance, a cardiac electrophysiologist from University Hospital. Vance presented continuous cardiac monitoring data. "Look at the intervals," he pointed out. "They're exactly 1,200 seconds apart. 20 minutes precisely. Biological systems don't operate with this level of precision." He then displayed Daniel's brain imaging. "There's an abnormal density in the medulla oblongata, right in the cardiac center. A tiny bright spot, no larger than a few millimeters. It's located precisely where the brain controls heart rate. I believe it's creating electrical interference that's disrupting cardiac function at regular intervals." "Can it be removed?" Martinez inquired. "Brain surgery on the brainstem carries enormous risks, and we don't know what caused it," Vance replied. He then brought up EEG recordings. "Most of his brain shows minimal activity due to the hypoxic injury, but this area exhibits unusual high-frequency oscillations. He'll casal on a specific region. These oscillations spike in intensity during each cardiac cessation event." "Which part of the brain?" I asked. "The temporal lobe. Areas associated with memory, consciousness, and the perception of time." That evening, I checked on Daniel at 7 p.m. His eyes remained open, staring. Every 20 minutes, his heart would stop for 15 to 20 seconds. Standing at his bedside, I spoke. "Daniel, if you can hear me, I want to help you." His right hand subtly moved, fingers curling inward, then relaxing. "Daniel, did you just move your hand?" The fingers curled again, deliberately. "Can you squeeze my hand if you can hear me?" I placed my hand in his. After several seconds, I felt it. A weak squeeze, yet undeniably intentional. "Oh my God," I whispered. "You're in there." Dr. Patricia Wong later confirmed it. Daniel displayed minimal but definite, purposeful movement. He could squeeze hands on command, albeit weakly. Given the extent of his cardiac arrest, he should have severe brain injury, Wong noted, but he's showing signs of preserved consciousness. The cardiac cessation events are causing repeated brief periods of cerebral hypoperfusion. The cumulative effect over time could be catastrophic. On November 6th, 3 days after his arrest, Kowalski called me at 11:47 p.m. "His intervals are changing. The episodes are getting longer and more frequent. First 15 to 20 seconds, now 34 seconds. Used to be every 20 minutes, now every 18. The pattern was evident. Eventually his heart would cease and not restart. At 1:33 a.m., as I was checking his IV, the next episode occurred. His heart stopped. I placed my fingers on his carotid artery. No pulse. Then his eyes moved. They deliberately shifted towards me and focused. For the first time, they truly focused on something. On me. His hand lifted from the bed and reached out, his fingers wrapping around my wrist with surprising strength. "Daniel," I whispered. His mouth moved behind the tube, attempting to speak. The episode lasted 47 seconds. Then his pulse returned, his eyes lost focus, and his hand fell back. During those 47 seconds, when his heart was not beating, Daniel had been more conscious than at any other moment since his admission. I called Vance and relayed my observations. The high-frequency oscillations spiked during the cardiac cessation events, Vance confirmed. What if consciousness isn't being disrupted? What if it's being enhanced? That's impossible. Without cardiac output, the brain is being deprived of oxygen, but only for 30 to 40 seconds. Perhaps whatever is in his brainstem is preserving or altering neural function in ways we don't yet comprehend. Over the next few hours, I diligently observed Daniel. Vance was right. Each time Daniel's heart stopped, he became more responsive. His eyes would focus, his hands moved with purpose, and his mouth formed words behind the tube, with each episode lasting progressively longer, 52 seconds, 58 seconds, 1 minute, and 14 seconds. At 4:18 a.m., the longest episode yet transpired. Daniel's heart stopped. 1 minute passed. 2 minutes. His eyes opened wide and locked onto mine with a desperate intensity. His hand gripped my arm with impossible strength. His entire body tensed as he struggled to communicate something urgent, something critical. I retrieved my phone and opened the Notes app, displaying a keyboard with large letters. "Daniel," I said, "I'm going to hold this up. Can you spell what you want to tell me? Look at the letters." He stared at the phone. His eyes shifted slowly and laboriously to specific letters. The immense effort was etched across every muscle of his face. K. His eyes fixed on the K with unmistakable intention. My hand trembling, I typed it. "Keep going. Take your time." His eyes shifted, then L again. Kill. Are you asking us to end your life? To disconnect life support? But his gaze remained fixed on the letters. His eyes darted with frantic intensity. N, O, W, M, E. Kill me. A chill ran through me, yet I sensed he wasn't finished. His eyes shifted again, more insistently. A, G, A, I, N. Kill me again. I stood there, phone clutched in my hand, those 3 words glaring from the screen like an accusation. Kill me again. Daniel's heart lurched back to life, the intense awareness instantly draining from his face, replaced by that familiar, vacant, distant gaze. His grip on my arm loosened, and his hand fell limply onto the bed. I shared the message with Kowalski and Vance. The 3 of us stood in the hallway, silently scrutinizing my phone screen. He's requesting termination of life support, Kowalski eventually stated, his voice hushed. It's an unambiguous plea. We need to contact ethics and his next of kin. But what does again signify? I queried, unable to tear my gaze from those 3 words on the display. Kill me again. We didn't kill him previously. He had experienced cardiac arrest on his own. Perhaps he implies he's already died, Vance offered, though his voice lacked conviction. And he wishes to die permanently, to halt these episodes. I peered through the glass at Daniel, lying there with that vacant expression. What if it's the reverse? The question escaped my lips before the thought was fully formed. What if, when his heart ceases, that's when he's truly alive? And when it beats, he's confined to some dreadful, diminished state? A heavy silence descended upon us. The ramifications were startling, unimaginable, terrifying. If Daniel experienced heightened consciousness during cardiac cessation, was more himself when his heart wasn't beating, then keeping him alive in the traditional sense might be the most inhumane act imaginable. We need to communicate with him again, I declared during the subsequent episode. We must comprehend precisely what he's enduring. At 4:56 a.m., the next episode commenced. I was prepared, phone in hand, the Notes app open, keyboard magnified sufficiently for him to discern clearly, even through whatever haze separated him from the world. Daniel's heart stopped. His eyes immediately, sharply, zeroed in on me, as if he had been anticipating this moment. His hand extended, gripping mine with that same desperate strength. There was an expression in his eyes I hadn't observed before. Not merely awareness, but profound urgency. A desperate plea. "Daniel," I uttered, my voice remaining steady, professional, despite my trembling hands. "I need you to articulate precisely what you're experiencing. When your heart stops, what transpires for you?" His eyes traversed the keyboard, each letter selected with excruciating slowness, yet with utter certainty. W-A-K-E. You're awake. You're more awake when your heart stops than when it's beating. His eyes moved again, faster this time, as if he had a multitude to convey and precious little time. Note Dream. Not a dream. You're fully conscious. This is genuine consciousness. Y-E-S. And when your heart is beating, when it's as it is most of the time, what is that like for you? His eyes shifted across the letters, and I detected a hint of desperation in the movement. Drowning. Drowning. The word struck me like a physical blow. When his heart was beating, when blood flowed to his brain in the normal manner that sustains all human life, Daniel felt as though he was drowning. "Do you want us to discontinue life support? To allow you to die permanently?" His eyes moved across the letters more frantically, more urgently than before. "No keep stopping heart. You want us to keep stopping your heart? You want these episodes to persist?" "Yes, let me stay." "Stay where? In the state when your heart is stopped? That's where you wish to be." His eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that stole my breath. "Yes." His heart restarted. The transformation was immediate and horrifying to witness. The keen awareness drained from his face like water through a sieve. His eyes lost focus. His hand released mine and fell back to the bed. He reverted to that diminished state, staring blankly, barely present, drowning. I examined the monitoring data. The episodes were now occurring every 12 minutes and lasting over 2 minutes each time. The trend was unmistakable, inevitable. Eventually, an episode would occur where his heart would stop and not restart. Daniel Carver would die. But according to what he had just communicated, that wasn't death. That was waking up. That was liberation from drowning. I convened an emergency meeting with the hospital ethics committee. We gathered at 6 a.m. Myself, Kowalski, Vance, Wong, Martinez, and Dr. Michael Santos, the ethics chair. I presented everything methodically, clinically, but my voice trembled as I displayed the communications on my phone. "This is unprecedented," Santos stated slowly. "We have a patient who is legally alive, who possesses cardiac function and demonstrable brain activity. Yet he appears to be more conscious during episodes when his heart isn't beating, and he's explicitly asking us to permit those episodes to continue, which will inevitably result in his death." "Is it death, though?" I asked, hearing the desperation in my own voice. "Or is it a transition to a different state of consciousness? He's telling us that when his heart stops, he's awake. When it beats, he's drowning." "That's philosophy, Dr. Chen, not medicine," Santos gently responded. "By all legal and medical definitions, when his heart stops permanently, Daniel Carver will be dead. What he perceives or experiences does not alter that legal reality." "But he's telling us that's when he feels alive," I insisted. "Doesn't that truly matter? Doesn't his experience of his own consciousness truly matter?" We debated for over an hour. The immense weight of it all pressed down on us. The legal ramifications, the medical ethics, the fundamental question of what truly constituted life and death. Finally, Santos made his decision. "We need to contact his next of kin immediately. They need to make decisions about his care. If he has a designated healthcare proxy, that person must be involved. We cannot make this decision unilaterally, regardless of what the patient appears to be communicating." Daniel's emergency contact was his sister, Michelle Carver. She had been traveling from Seattle and arrived at 2 p.m. that afternoon. I met with her in a private consultation room. Michelle, in her early 40s, a lawyer, was composed but clearly exhausted from worry and the burden of impossible decisions. I explained everything: the cardiac arrest, the Lazarus syndrome, the periodic cessation of cardiac function, the escalating consciousness during those episodes, Daniel's communications spelling out words with his eyes. "You're telling me my brother is more conscious, more himself, when his heart stops beating than when it's functioning normally?" Her voice was meticulously controlled, the voice of someone holding themselves together through sheer willpower. That's what he has communicated to us, yes, and the episodes are becoming more frequent and lasting longer. The progression suggests that eventually his heart will stop and not restart. And he's asking you to allow that to happen? He's asking you not to intervene? I presented her with the notes from Daniel's communications. Michelle read them slowly, tears streaming down her face, her finger tracing the words on my phone screen. Wake, not dream. Drowning. Let me stay. This sounds like Daniel, she said quietly, her voice breaking. He was always interested in consciousness, in altered states of awareness. He used to talk about lucid dreaming, meditation, experiences at the edge of consciousness. She paused, wiping her eyes. He said the most interesting parts of existence were in the transition states, the liminal spaces, places between. She looked up at me, and I recognized her decision was made. If he's asking to remain in that state, if that's where he feels awake and real, then I believe we should honor it. Can I see him? Can I speak to him during one of these episodes? I escorted her up to the ICU. Daniel lay in his bed, eyes open and blank, staring at nothing. His heart was beating normally at 74 beats per minute. He showed no awareness of our presence. Michelle sat beside the bed and took his hand. Tears were on her face, but her voice was steady. "When will the next episode occur?" Michelle asked, her voice barely a whisper. I checked the timer I had started tracking obsessively. About 4 minutes. We waited. Michelle sat by the bed holding her brother's cold hand, speaking to him softly about childhood memories, about her profound love for him, about her trust in his knowledge of what he truly needed. I stood nearby, phone ready, feeling like an intruder in this intimate moment, yet recognizing the necessity of documenting whatever transpired next. At 2:43 p.m., Daniel's heart stopped. The change was immediate and profound. His eyes focused sharply. His hand squeezed Michelle's with sudden strength. His mouth moved behind the tube, desperately attempting to form words around the obstruction. "Danny," Michelle said, tears now flowing freely down her face. "It's Michelle. I'm here." "I'm right here with you." His eyes found hers, and I witnessed pure, overwhelming relief flood across his features. His free hand shakily lifted to touch her face, and she leaned into it, sobbing. "Danny, they tell me you want to remain like this when your heart stops. Is that true? Is this really what you desire?" He glanced at my phone. I held it up with trembling hands. His eyes moved with that same agonizing deliberation. "Yes, E.S." "Why, Danny? What is it like? Help me comprehend." His eyes shifted across the letters, selecting each one with meticulous care, as if every word held more significance than anything he had ever communicated in his life. "Clearfreereal. Clear, free, real." Michelle was openly sobbing now, but she maintained a steady voice for him. "And when your heart is beating, when you're like you were a minute ago?" "TRAPPEDIMCAMTHINK. Trapped. Dimensimes. Can't think. What should I do, Danny? Should I let you go? Should I tell them to cease everything?" His eyes moved urgently, frantically, as if this was the most critical message he could convey. Not letting go, just letting be. The event itself lasted 2 minutes and 47 seconds. When Daniel's heart recommenced beating, he slumped back into that diminished state, and the light instantly vanished from his eyes. His hand dropped limply from Michelle's face. She embraced him, weeping, while I stood there, profoundly affected by what we had just witnessed. Michelle turned to me, her eyes red and swollen, but her voice held unshakable conviction. "I want you to stop trying to prevent these episodes. No medications to regulate his heart rhythm. No interventions if an episode doesn't resolve spontaneously. Let him transition naturally to wherever he's trying to go." "You do realize this means he will die?" Dr. Santos inquired, having joined us in the room. "Medically and legally, he will be deceased." "No," Michelle responded with fierce certainty. "It means he'll wake up. He just explained it to us. He told us precisely what this experience is like for him." She gestured towards Daniel's blank face, his empty, staring eyes. "This is the nightmare. When his heart stops, that's when he wakes up into something clear and real. I don't comprehend it. I can't articulate it. But I trust him, and I will not confine him to a state he described as drowning, simply because we fear the meaning of death." The Ethics Committee reconvened and, after extensive deliberation, agreed to honor Michelle's decision as Daniel's healthcare proxy. We would provide comfort care only, refraining from any interventions to prevent or terminate the cardiac cessation episodes. We would allow nature, or whatever peculiar process was unfolding in Daniel's altered brain, to run its course. Over the subsequent 12 hours, the episodes grew more frequent and prolonged. Every 8 minutes, each lasting between 3 to 4 minutes. During these episodes, Daniel was completely present, fully himself, in ways that made his diminished state appear as a cruel parody of consciousness. He communicated with Michelle, with me, and with the staff who had attended to him. He shared what he experienced during these interludes. He described it as being in pure consciousness, aware of everything, yet unbound by physical sensation or the tyranny of linear time. He explained that his normal state, when his heart was beating and blood flowed typically to his brain, felt like being submerged under water, like attempting to think through a thick fog, like being trapped in a dream where you know you should awaken but cannot find the exit. He said that when his heart stopped, he could think clearly for the first time. He could grasp things that had perplexed him his entire life. He likened it to returning home to a place he had never been but had always been searching for. Michelle asked if he was afraid, and he spelled out N-O. "This is what I've been seeking my entire life. I just didn't know how to discover it." At 11:34 p.m. on November 6th, Daniel Carver's heart ceased for the final time. We observed the monitor flatline. We watched his eyes widen and focus with crystal clarity, sharper and more present than I had ever witnessed them. Michelle was holding his hand, having held it for hours, refusing to depart from his side. I was present with my phone, recording these last moments, documenting this impossible transition. His eyes moved across the letters on my phone screen one last time. The movement was slow but deliberate, each letter chosen with complete intention. "Thank you. Thank you." Then, slowly, purposefully, his eyes closed. Not the forced closure of death, nor the blank cessation of awareness. He closed his eyes the way one closes their eyes when finally, truly, able to surrender to sleep after a long and arduous day. His face relaxed into an expression of profound peace, a relief so deep it was almost tangible in the air surrounding him. The ventilator continued to move his chest artificially, mechanically, and pointlessly. But there was no pulse, no cardiac activity, no blood pressure, no response to any stimuli. I waited the required time, following protocol, even though protocol felt absurd in the face of what we had just witnessed. I checked for signs of life with my stethoscope, my fingers, all the instruments and training acquired over 14 years of emergency medicine. There were none. There was only that serene face and the memory of those final words. At 11:51 p.m., I pronounced Daniel Carver deceased for the second time in 4 days. Yet, as I stood there, gazing at his peaceful face, at Michelle clutching her brother's hand and whispering goodbye, I questioned if deceased was the appropriate term. According to what he had conveyed to us, according to his own experience of his own consciousness, he hadn't died. He had merely woken up. He had simply become more alive than he had been since that initial cardiac arrest retrieved him from wherever he had momentarily gone. The autopsy was performed 2 days later. I obtained a copy of the report through professional channels, driven by an urgent need to comprehend, to learn what had been done to Daniel Carver's brain. The findings were extraordinary and deeply unsettling. The area of abnormal density in Daniel's brainstem that Dr. Vance had identified was not a tumor, calcification, or any natural occurrence. It was a cluster of artificially enhanced neural tissue, dense networks of neurons that had been modified somehow, exhibiting patterns of connectivity that did not align with normal human neuroanatomy. The pathologist described structures that should not exist, pathways that defied our understanding of how brains develop and function. The conclusion was that Daniel had undergone some form of experimental neural enhancement, possibly without informed consent or full knowledge of the risks. The tissue patterns were consistent with genetic modification or advanced neural engineering, far beyond anything that should exist in civilian medical research. The enhanced tissue was located precisely in the brainstem's cardiac center and demonstrated connections to areas of the brain associated with consciousness and the perception of time. Michelle corroborated what we had begun to suspect. Daniel had participated in a neuroscience research study 6 months before his death. He had been recruited through an online advertisement seeking volunteers for consciousness research. He had mentioned it to her casually, stating they were investigating altered states of awareness using some type of advanced imaging technology. He had received $5,000 for his participation and was assured the research was completely safe, non-invasive, involving only the monitoring of his brain activity during meditation and other consciousness exercises. We attempted to trace the research study. The company listed on the consent forms Daniel had signed no longer existed. The address led to a vacant office building in an industrial park outside Denver. The principal investigator's credentials could not be verified. The university he claimed affiliation with had no record of him. The phone numbers on all the paperwork were disconnected. Whatever had been done to Daniel's brain had been carried out by individuals who wished to remain hidden, who had vanished as thoroughly as if they had never existed. The police investigated it as possible involuntary manslaughter or reckless endangerment. However, they had no leads, no suspects, no evidence beyond Daniel's modified brain tissue. His medical records from before the study showed no abnormalities. After the study, he had apparently been fine, functioning normally, living his quiet life as a programmer, until that night when his heart stopped for the first time, and everything changed. I think about Daniel Carver constantly. I dream about those cardiac cessation episodes, about watching him become more alive as his heart ceased beating. I reflect on his final message. Thank you. Was I justified in honoring his wishes? Did I assist a patient in transitioning to a different state of consciousness? Or did I permit a confused, brain-damaged man to die when he might have recovered? The other physicians involved hold differing opinions. Kowalski believes we acted correctly, respecting patient autonomy. Vance thinks we witnessed something science cannot yet explain, and that our response was appropriate. Wong believes Daniel was experiencing a form of neural malfunction that made him perceive the cessation episodes as pleasant, when in reality they were periods of severe hypoxia. I don't know what to believe. I only know that Daniel Carver died 3 times in my emergency department. The first time for 29 minutes before spontaneously returning to life. The second time repeatedly, every 20 minutes and then more frequently for longer periods. And the third time permanently, with an expression of peace and relief on his face. I've been an emergency physician for 14 years. I understand death. I understand resuscitation. I understand the protocols and science of critical care. But Daniel Carver taught me that perhaps consciousness doesn't operate in the way we envision. Perhaps death isn't always the absolute end. Perhaps sometimes, for reasons we don't comprehend, dying is simply waking up. I still work in the same emergency department. I still run codes, still perform CPR, still strive to revive people from cardiac arrest. But now, occasionally, when I am about to call time of death, I pause. I wonder if the person before me is truly gone, or if they have transitioned to a state of consciousness I cannot perceive or measure. I wonder if Daniel Carver is still out there somewhere, in whatever space he entered when his heart stopped for the last time. Still conscious, still aware, still more alive than he ever was in the world I inhabit. And I wonder if, someday, when my own heart stops, I will discover what he did. If I will wake up as he did, into clarity and freedom, and a reality beyond physical existence. That possibility terrifies me. But it also instills in me something I never expected to feel about death: curiosity. Daniel Carver died 3 times, but I believe he only truly lived once. And that was in those impossible moments when his heart had stopped. Medical science indicated he should have been either unconscious or deceased, yet in reality, he was more acutely aware than any of us who stood by his bedside, our hearts pounding and our comprehension limited. I remain unaware of the exact nature of his experience, but I am certain I will forever recall the way he gazed at me during that ultimate occurrence. The serene conviction in his eyes as he articulated, "Thank you," before they finally shut for good. Whatever the true nature of death, Daniel Carver exhibited no fear of it. Rather, he embraced it. Having already traversed that threshold and returned, he understood what awaited him beyond. My sole wish is that when my own moment arrives, I possess even a fraction of his remarkable bravery.